Don't worry about anger. Be patient and introverted. What is the most powerful thing in the world? The power to endure humiliation is the greatest. Fists and guns are feared, but they cannot be persuaded. Only by putting up with humiliation can we influence the strong. Zhuge Liang captured Meng Huo 7 times, and Lian Po pleaded guilty to Lin Xiagru, all of which tolerated humiliation. Wang Yangming also admitted that the situation in which he was relegated to Gishu at the time with nothing and nothing was the best place to exercise his endurance and enable him to meditate and endure. In military thought, what Wang Yangming is best at is the Jedi counter-offense. When suppressing Zhu Lihao's rebellion, the rebellion led by Wang Yangming fell into a desperate situation several times, but won miraculously several times, and finally overthrew Zhu Yuhao. Even when he was in military superiority, Wang Yangming was good at patience until the best time to gain the initiative, and final victory with the least loss. He is good at patience, good at lowering his position. Such military thinking comes from his self-confidence and patience. Be patient. Especially for those who are grumpy, don't get angry easily when something happens, and learn to be self-control. Otherwise, more people will be offended, which is not conducive to their future development. Fu Bi was a prime minister of good conduct in Renzong of the Northern Song dynasty. But when he was young, Fu Bi inadvertently offended many people because of his eloquence, which had a negative impact on his career and life. After a long period of introspection, he gradually became generous and modest. So, when someone told him who was speaking ill of him, he always smiled and replied, "How could that be? How could he speak of me casually?" Once, a poor scholar wanted to humiliate Fu Bi in public, so he stopped him in the middle of the street and said, "I hear you are knowledgeable. I would like to ask you a question." Fu Bi knew that the comer was not good, but he could not ignore it, and had no choice but to agree. The scholar asked Fu Bi, "Excuse me, if you want to correct your heart, you must first be sincere. The so-called sincerity is not deceiving yourself. Yes is yes, and no is no. What will happen to you if someone scolds you?" Fu Bi thought for a moment, and replied, "I'll pretend I didn't hear it." The scholar laughed and said, unexpectedly, "Some people say that you are familiar with the 4 books and the 5 scriptures. It turns out that it is pure vanity. Fu Bi's intelligence is dull. At best, he is just a mediocre man," and went away laughing. Fu Bi's servant complained to his master, "It's hard for you to understand. I can answer such a simple question, but why do you pretend you don't know?" Fu Bi said, "This man is a frivolous man. If he argues with him, he will be tense and red-faced. No matter who refutes who is speechless, he will be convinced. Scholars are narrow-minded and are bound to hold grudges. This is futile, so why argue?" A few days later, the scholar met Fu Bi again in the street. Fu Bi came forward to say hello on his own initiative. The scholar ignored it and turned away. After walking not far, he looked back at Fu Bi, and sneered loudly, "Fu Bi is a tortoise-ear." Someone told Fu Bi that the scholar was scolding him. "It's to scold others, if he scolds you by name." "How can he scold others? Is there no one with the same name in the world?" As he spoke, he walked away, ignoring the insults of the scholar. The scholar was so bored that he walked away. In a person's life, everyone will inevitably encounter such an embarrassing situation as Fu Bi, who will be unfairly criticized and even abused by others. Fu Bi told us in action that no matter it is despicable, vicious or cruel, you must not become as irrational as the other party because of an unfair criticism or abusive abuse. The only tactic to win is to remain silent. Not to have a head-on confrontation with others, and not even superfluous explanations. If someone scolds you, you can treat him as air and ignore him. Because in this case, quarreling and insulting each other will neither bring happiness nor victory to either side, but will only bring greater annoyance, resentment and harm. To say the least, if the party who does not have the upper hand in scolding makes a fool of himself in public, it will only bring resentment against himself. The one who has the upper hand, although he scolds the other party to pieces, what can he do? It can only deepen the antagonism and the resentment of the other party. In order to better protect, develop and achieve ourselves, we should be humble, low-key, harmonious and peaceful in our social life. Because, in many cases, it is our low profile and our introversion that make our lives more complete. Put up with small things and make big things happen. Wang Yangming said that after he was relegated to Longchang, he lived in the land of barbarians and was extremely poor, but he was moved and patient, and finally realized it. At that time, Wang Yangming first entered officialdom, but he was plotted by treacherous minister Liu Jin, relegated to Gizhu, and even nearly killed on the road. But he still put up with this breath, skillfully avoided the assassination and took office. It was precisely because of his forbearance that he temporarily dispelled Liu Jin's suspicion and saved his life, and it was precisely because of his temporary forbearance that he had the later Dragonfield Enlightenment and founded the School of Mind from then on. Although Wang Yangming was demoted and his ambition was strangled, he was still not impatient. He not only avoided the disaster of killing himself, but also achieved his own future. In real life, people who are impatient and careless cannot accomplish great things. People with gentle temperament and peace of mind are bound to go well. Those who do not control their own destiny must be fooled by it. In ancient times, there was a woman who was often angry about trivial things. She also knew that this was not good. So she went to ask an outsider to open her mind. The master of the world listened to her story, said nothing, took her to the woodshed, locked her and went away. The woman jumped to her feet and scolded with anger. After scolding for a long time, people from outside the world paid no attention to it. The woman turned around and began to plead, but the superior people in the world still turned a deaf ear. The woman was silent at last. The outsider came to the door and asked her, "Are you still angry?" The woman said, "I am only angry for myself. How could I come to this place to suffer? How can someone who can't even forgive himself feel at ease?" The master of the world turned and walked away. After a while, the high man asked her, "Are you still angry?" "I'm not angry," said the woman. "Why? There's nothing I can do to get angry. Your anger has not gone away. It is still in your heart, and after the outbreak, it will be more intense." The master of the world has left again. When the master of the world came to the door for the third time, the woman told him, "I'm not angry anymore, because it's not worth it. I still know it's not worth it, so we can see that there is still a yardstick in my heart, and there is still a gas root." The man from outside the world laughed. When she saw the figure of an outsider standing at the door against the setting sun, the woman asked him, "What is chi?" The master of the world spilled the tea on the ground. The woman looked at it for a while, then suddenly realized something, so she went away with thanks. The woman asked, "What is chi?" What the high man wants to say is, chi is actually a kind of loss in need. When we allow others to control our emotions, we are already a victim, and when there is nothing we can do about what is happening, complaint and anger become the only release. To be angry is to punish yourself with other people's mistakes. That being the case, why should we be angry? Don't be angry, because anger hurts your body and spirit. Everyone has their own emotions, we should learn to control, otherwise, some excessive words and behaviors will make things worse and hurt people. To do great things, to achieve great things, the key lies in the word patience. People often say that there is a knife on the head of the word nung. Patience is painful, but patience also has a heart. If there is more tolerance, both those who tolerate others and those who are tolerated will get physical and mental pleasure. In ancient times, there was a man named Zhang Chung, who was herding cattle on the hillside when he was young. It wasn't long before Zhang Chung began to take a nap unconsciously. At this time, he was awakened by a cry of a cow. He saw his neighbor creeping up the reins and leading his cow away. Zhang Chung did not shout immediately. He knew the neighbor's situation very well. Because of his family's poverty, the neighbor's family had not eaten meat for a long time. Zhang Chung got up from the ground and followed the neighbor quietly. After arriving at the neighbor's house, Zhang Chung saw that the neighbor was sharpening his knife and seemed to be going to slaughter the cow. At this time, the neighbor found Zhang Konglai standing aside. His face was immediately covered with shame, and he did not know where to put his hand with the knife. Instead of blaming his neighbor, Zhang Chung told him a story. It turned out that Zhang Chung had a very difficult life at home when he was a child. He often ate the last meal without the next meal. Once, he went to a family's field and stole a watermelon. When the owner found out, he didn't say anything. Instead, he brought some watermelons from the field for Zhang Chung to eat. Before he left, he asked him to bring some watermelons. After more than a decade, Zhang Chung became an official in the capital, and often told these two stories to his subordinates, saying, "I use my own actions to infect each other, which is much more useful than scolding and killing the head, then we can see the world of peace." Instead of blaming Zhang Chung, the owner of the watermelon gave him watermelon to eat. Zhang Chung was infected, so when his cow was taken away, he did not scold, but patiently, with action to infect. As the saying goes, one cannot bear trifles, but it is difficult to make a big plan. People should learn to be patient. If you can't tolerate trifles and lose your temper, it will only be bad. Only when you make up your mind to be patient can you get things done, or you will get into trouble. Just be patient and there will be sunshine tomorrow. In the early Ming dynasty, Confucian Neo-Confucianism in the Song dynasty occupied a dominant position, but Wang Yangming's theory blew a new wind after it was published, which opened up a new situation of Confucianism. However, it has also been opposed by many scholars. Just as Wu Tinghan, an official in the dynasty, advanced Wang Yangming's theory on the issue of knowing and doing. All right, criticize. He believes that what people know is the objective existence of the outside world, and emphasizes the role of perceptual knowledge and action in cognition, that is to say, knowledge is the correspondence of things. If you leave things in the outside world, there is only empty knowledge, losing the object and source of cognition. Wang Yangming does not show much dissatisfaction with the criticism and accusation of others, but is tolerant and magnanimous, which he believes is a normal phenomenon of academic development. Not to mention the academic right and wrong. Just look at Wang Yangming's tolerant heart. There are some things in life that you may never get used to, but you have to live with them day by day, so you must learn to be patient. If you don't have the ability to change reality, then you have to be patient and adapt, and when it's all over, the rest is beautiful.